I am Jael Vorin, archival scribe of the Concord of 12, and I have spent 90 galactic standard years documenting the histories of every species that sits at our table. I have filled more records than most beings will ever read. I have studied war songs and peace treaties and every shade of diplomacy in between. And in all that time, across all those species, only one civilization has ever truly unsettled me. Not the Drekathy, with their bone-plated armor and their fleets that blot out stars. Not the Nariel, who sharpen their traditions on the edge of conquest. Not even the Velith, whose hunting dances have ended entire ecosystems. Humans unsettle me, and I am writing this record now because every few years, some newly contacted species joins the Concord, reviews the attendance logs of our peace summits, and asks the same foolish question. They look at Earth's delegation roster. They see no military titles, no generals, no admirals, no honor guard, and they laugh. They call it arrogance. They call it ignorance. Some call it an insult to the very institution of galactic diplomacy. I am writing this so that no one has to learn the truth the way the rest of us did. Let me begin at the beginning. 90 years ago, humanity was a freshly contacted species. They had barely stepped beyond their own solar system when our scouts found them. The Concord extended an invitation to their first peace summit, as we do with all new civilizations. It is tradition, it is ceremony, and every species, without exception, uses that first summit to make an impression. They send their finest warriors in gleaming armor. They park their most impressive warships in visible orbit. They want the galaxy to see their teeth. Earth sent 5 people. A 61-year-old retired school principal named Margaret Chen, who carried a thermos of something she called tea. A trauma surgeon named Dr. Ade Okonkwo, who smiled too much for a man who had spent his career stitching people back together. A linguistics professor who spoke 4 human languages and learned 2 of ours within a week. An agricultural scientist who wanted to talk about soil. And a poet. No armor, no warships, no ceremonial weapons. Just 5 ordinary people, in comfortable clothing, carrying notebooks and good intentions. The Concord found it charming, the way one finds a child's drawing charming. The Drekathy did not find it charming at all. Their war speaker, Threk Moldan, was a towering figure who had earned his title through 30 years of conquest. He confronted Margaret Chen on the first day, standing over her with all the menace his species could project, and demanded to know where Earth's real delegation was. Margaret Chen looked up at him. She was small and gray-haired, and utterly calm. She poured him a cup of tea from her thermos, held it out to him, and said, "We did not come here to show you our teeth, war speaker. We came here to listen." Moldan did not take the tea, but he did not push the matter further either. Something in her voice, perhaps. Something in those steady eyes. I noted it in my records at the time, but did not understand it. I would not understand it for years. That was the first summit. Humanity was polite, curious, and remarkably good at listening. They signed no major treaties. They made no demands. They simply watched and learned, and asked thoughtful questions. The Concord dismissed them as a minor species. Harmless, unremarkable. We were wrong. 12 years later, at the 4th Peace Summit on the neutral station Paravel Kos, I witnessed something that changed my understanding of humanity forever. Tensions between the Drekathy Dominion and the Velith Communion had been building for years over a disputed nebula, rich in FTL catalyst minerals. The summit was supposed to mediate. It did not go well. On the 3rd day, the new Drekathy war speaker, younger and far more reckless than Moldan, declared the negotiations a failure. He ordered his honor guard, 16 fully armed warriors, to seal the chamber and detain the Velith delegation. The room erupted. Delegates from 9 species scrambled for the exits and found them locked. Military attachés reached for sidearms. The Velith began emitting distress harmonics so sharp they hurt my ears. Earth's delegation that year was 7 people, led by Dr. Okonkwo, now 47. All civilians. Not a single one carried a weapon. What happened next took 11 seconds. I know because I reviewed the security recordings 40 times. Dr. Okonkwo stood up from his chair, straightened his jacket, and walked to the center of the chamber floor. Every eye turned to him. Every weapon in the room could have been pointed at him. He did not seem to notice. He looked at the Drekathy war speaker, and in a voice that carried no anger, no fear, and absolutely no doubt, he said, "Sit down." Not a request. A statement of fact about what was going to happen next. A Drekathy warrior moved to grab him. Okonkwo shifted his weight, redirected the warrior's arm, and with one precise, clinical motion, guided the 300-pound creature to the floor. He did not strike. He did not shout. He moved the way water moves around a stone, and the warrior simply ended up on the ground, confused and unable to rise comfortably. Okonkwo looked back at the war speaker. "I have held a man's beating heart in my hand, and kept it alive," he said. "I have worked for 30 hours without rest to save a stranger's life. You do not frighten me." I said, "Sit down." The war speaker sat down. The chamber was silent for a very long time after that. I filed my report that evening, and the following week, the Concord quietly assigned me to lead a comprehensive study of humanity. Not a cultural exchange, not a diplomatic profile, a full species assessment, the kind we normally reserve for civilizations we are worried about. What my team discovered over the next 2 years kept me awake at night. Most galactic civilizations have a warrior caste. The Drekathy breed their soldiers from birth. The Nareel select their sharpest children at age 6 and train them in academies until they are grown. The Velith have a biological subspecies optimized for combat. This is normal. This is how civilizations work. You have your warriors, and you have your civilians, and the line between them is clear and permanent. Humans do not have this line. Any human can become a soldier. A farmer can pick up a weapon, train for a few months, fight a war, and then go home and plant crops again. A teacher can become a field medic. A scientist can build a device capable of leveling a city, and when the crisis is over, they simply go back to being a teacher, a farmer, a scientist. The transformation is not permanent. It is not even remarkable to them. They consider it normal. This was deeply disturbing to my team, but it was only the beginning. We studied their biology next. Humans are pursuit predators. Most species in the galaxy evolved to be fast, or strong, or venomous, or armored. Humans evolved to be none of these things in exceptional measure. Instead, they evolved to follow. They would pick a target and walk after it. Not run, walk, for hours, for days, until the target collapsed from exhaustion and could no longer flee. Humans invented patience as a survival strategy. They turned endurance into a form of dominance that most galactic species have no answer for. Then we discovered adrenaline. Every human carries within their body a chemical system that activates in moments of crisis. It suppresses pain, it increases strength, it sharpens reflexes. It floods their system in seconds, and for a brief window, it makes them faster, stronger, and more resistant to damage than their biology should allow. Our medical board reviewed the data 3 times, because they were certain there had been a translation error. There had not been. Every human has this, from birth. It is not engineered. It is not augmented. It is simply part of what they are. But the detail that disturbed me most was not biological. It was behavioral. Their civilians are not what we mean when we use that word. In the Concord, a civilian is someone who cannot fight, who has not been trained, who is, by definition, outside the sphere of conflict. Human civilians are not this. Human teachers have placed their own bodies between danger and their students, and refuse to move. Human doctors travel into active conflict zones to treat the wounded, not their own wounded, but anyone who needs help. Human farmers have historically organized themselves into fighting forces that toppled professional armies. Their scientists built the most destructive device in their planet's history, a weapon capable of erasing entire cities, and then many of those same scientists spent the rest of their lives campaigning to make sure it was never used again. They are not a species that fights because it knows nothing else. They are a species that is fully capable of extraordinary destruction and chooses, every single day, with great and deliberate effort, not to engage in it. My report to the Concord contained one conclusion that I still stand by today. I wrote, "Earth does not send military delegates to peace summits because they do not recognize the distinction we do. Every human is capable of doing harm. They choose not to. And that choice, in a species this inherently dangerous, is the most significant message they could possibly send to this body." The Concord classified my report. They did not want it to cause panic. And for 20 years, It gathered dust in the archives. Then the siege happened. The 12th Peace Summit. The same station, Paravel Kos, rebuilt and expanded. A rogue faction of the Noreal hegemony launched a surprise assault during negotiations. 300 shock troops breached the station. The security grid went down. Communication was severed. In the first hour, 17 delegates from various species were lost, before anyone could organize a response. Earth's delegation that year was 9 people: a diplomat, 2 doctors, a xenobiologist, an engineer, a teacher, a retired firefighter, a chef, and a 62-year-old agricultural attaché named Yuna Vasquez. Not a single one of them was military. All 9 survived. They did more than survive. When the station's civilian quarter came under threat, those 9 humans organized a defense. The retired firefighter, a man who had spent his career rescuing people from burning buildings, mapped the station's evacuation routes from memory after walking them only once. He directed 300 panicking alien civilians to safety through maintenance corridors that were not on any official schematic. The engineer disabled the assault team's breaching devices by improvising a signal jammer from a medical scanner and 2 pieces of station equipment that were never designed to work together. The chef barricaded a corridor junction with furniture, cooking equipment, and sheer stubbornness. He held that position for 4 hours. The 2 doctors set up a field hospital in a storage bay and treated wounded from 6 different species, adapting their medical knowledge in real time to alien biologies they had only studied in textbooks. And Yuna Vasquez, the 62-year-old agricultural attaché, was found after the siege, sitting calmly in a corridor, with 11 Noreal soldiers on the floor around her, none of them able to stand. She was bandaging a wound on her own arm with strips of fabric torn from her formal jacket. When a Concord medic asked her how she had managed to subdue nearly a dozen armed soldiers by herself, she looked up and said, "I grew up on a cattle ranch in Patagonia. Honestly, branding season was harder." After the siege, the Concord could no longer pretend. My report was declassified. Humanity was quietly reclassified from a developing minor species to a Class 9 adaptive threat. The same designation we give to civilizations capable of ending other civilizations. And still, Earth never sent military to the summits. When the Concord formally asked why, the human Secretary General smiled and gave the answer that I now keep displayed on the wall of my office. She said, "You want to know why we do not send soldiers to peace talks? Because if we sent soldiers, you would think we came to talk about war. We send civilians because we want you to understand something important. Peace is not the absence of the ability to fight. It is the presence of the choice not to. Every person in our delegation could cause you harm. They choose not to. Every single day they make that choice. That is what makes them the best representatives of our species. They are not showing you our weakness. They are showing you our strength. And if we ever stop sending civilians to your summits, that is when you should worry. I have spent 90 years studying the civilizations of this galaxy. I have seen every form of strength and every tradition of pride. The Drakathi fight because it is bred into their bones. The Noreal fight because their culture demands it. The Velith fight because evolution shaped them for it. Humans fight because they have decided something matters more than their own comfort, their own safety, their own lives. They fight for ideas, for strangers, for the simple belief that things should be better than they are. And when they are not fighting, they pour you tea and ask you about your day. I am old now. I have seen more of this galaxy than most beings ever will. And I tell you with absolute certainty that there is no force among the stars more powerful than a creature that could destroy you and never does. Not because it cannot, not because it does not know how, but because it looked at you and decided you were worth something better. Earth does not send military to peace summits. Pray they never feel the need to.